Hi up, Rayvers. We've got another Ratron request for you today, courtesy of the Ratrons and the Equal Ratrons over on my Patreon. It's Western Week this week, so I asked for Western suggestions to go on the rotating review randomiser, and it selected Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now, we start with a sepia silent movie. It's in sepia to make it look old. And it's telling us all about Butch Cassidy and his hole-in-the-wall gang and how they used to rule the Old West. And it's accompanied by some melancholic piano music. By none other than Burt Bacharach, or as I call him in our house, Knackersack. Denise tells me off every time I do it, says it's disrespectful. But we'll talk more about the music later. Anyway, we see him robbing a train and then getting chased by this posse before escaping by riding off into the distance. But then once the titles are done, we're in the film. But this starts in sepia. Now, I ain't seen this for years, so I couldn't remember a lot of what happened. But I do distinctly remember when I first saw this thinking, oh, is this going to be an arty film? Because we were well into the colour era by this point. But my fears were soon dispelled, because I got hooked into it pretty quickly. And we meet Butch Cassidy first up, played by the charismatic Paul Newman, as he's scoping out a bank and all its new security features, understandably pissed off that it's going to be blooming impossible to rob it anymore.
What happened to the old bank? It was beautiful.
People kept robbing it.
It's a small price to pay for beauty.
But then we meet his charismatic co-star, Robert Redford, playing Sundance Kid, having a game of poker. I presume it's a game of poker. Could have been top trumps, I suppose, but... yeah, anyway, he's obviously winning, because the bloke he's playing against ain't happy.
And I can't even spot how you're cheating.
Oh, dearie me, you can't go saying that. At least not if you don't want to get shot dead. But this bit's great because Butch Cassidy walks in and we get a very quick glimpse into who these two blokes are. We see Butch Cassidy with his gift at gab.
What would you think about maybe asking us to stick around?
What?
You don't have to mean it or anything. Just ask us to stick around, I promise you.
And we find out the Sundance Kid's reputation with a gun precedes him.
I didn't know you were the Sundance Kid when I said you were cheating. If I draw on you, you'll kill me.
And we're only a couple of minutes into the film, but it's already given us a great insight into these two fellas.
Hey, kid, how good are you?
Yeah, he's highly proficient with the gun, just like all good Wild West heroes.
With justice be done, tear up that mortgage, unhand that rancher's daughter.
Now, we follow Butch and Sundance as they travel back to Hole-in-the-Wall to meet up with their gang. And before we know it, we're in colour. But as I say, I was quickly ensconced in film, so I didn't even notice the change from sepia. Now, it appears that not everybody in the gang is happy with Butch staying as leader. And he gets challenged to a knife fight by this gigantic shirtless man with a deep voice.
When we're done, if he's dead, you're welcome to stay.
So the odds ain't in Butch's favour. So he changes them.
Not until me and Harvey get the rules straightened out.
Rules? In a knife fight? No rules.
Now that's a hurt knackersack. Now he's a very big bloke and he's got a very deep voice. So I reckon he must have gigantic testicles. And I was thinking, oh, is that boot to his nads enough to take him out of commission? Admittedly with the punched at face afterwards, but it does seem like the testicular shot is the one that got him. But then I thought, sometimes you just get a tap on your nads and it's agony, isn't it? So yeah, maybe the fact he's got gigantic testicles is a disadvantage in this situation. Oof, crikey, Michael Douglas's testicles green. Anyway, having quelled the uprising, Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid and the rest of the gang go to rob a train, thinking it'd be easier than robbing a bank, what with all the new security measures in place. And we're getting a little bit of comedy with this stubborn guard who refuses to open the carriage so that they can get in the safe.
I work for Mr. E.H. Harriman on the Union Pacific Railroad, and he entrusted me.
But the other important thing we learn is that Butch Cassidy, he don't want to hurt anybody. So, yeah, he's obviously a decent bloke. Apart from the fact he just wants to nickel the people's money.
Woodcock, you alright? Hey.
And evidently, the locals don't have a problem with Butch and his lads. Presumably, they ain't nicking their money. And the local sheriff didn't have any joy rounding up a posse to try and hunt them down, oblivious to the fact that they're about 20 yards away from him. So while Butch is keeping his son busy with a prostitute, Sundance, he starts behaving very questionably. Butch Cassidy obviously seems a nice bloke. Sundance Kid, what's he doing here? Forcing this woman to take her clothes off at gunpoint. Oh no. No, he's obviously some lewd, weird, rapey pervert.
Do you know what I wish? What? That once you'd get here on time.
Oh, thank God for that. Oh, it was just a bit of fun role play. And he ain't a lewd, weird, rapey pervert. Oh, that's a relief. We can like him after all. And evidently this woman's known him for ages. Because Butch knows her and all, as he takes her out for a spin on his new bicycle. And this is the first of our musical interludes. It's because it's a weird film, this. It doesn't have any music, really. It just has musical interludes in it. It doesn't have what you'd call a score. But this is, of course, the smash hit song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
Raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling.
Oh, I'll never forget the sleepless night we had with Maxine when she was toddler. She was up all night with croup. Sounded like an asthmatic Darth Vader. And the only thing that seemed to calm her down were Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, played on repeat all bloody night. But it weren't the Butch Cassidy version, no. Denise bought the Sasha Distel version. Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
Raindrops are falling on my head.
Oh, bloody night. Seared into my brain, that is. Ugh, bloody hell. Now, I remember thinking, the first time I saw this film, this bit I found a little bit annoying, a bit naff and silly. But it's funny how time changes things, isn't it? Because watching it this time, I enjoyed it. I thought it was charming. Paul Newman, very proficient at the bicycle stunts. Michael Crawford would be proud of that. And I rode fed up with getting robbed all the time. Mr. E.H. Harriman and the railroad company enlist an elite posse to hunt him down. But yeah, they pick off a couple of the hole-in-the-wall gang, and Butch and Sundance head for the hills with the posse in hot pursuit. Now, it's some very clever camera work here, because you'll often see Butch and Sundance in the foreground and the posse in the background, just like a dust cloud ominously coming towards them. You know, just relentless. They can't get away from him. And they reckon the bloke leading it is some crack lawman, LaForce.
He always wears a white skimmer. That's how you tell it's Joe LaForce, because he wears a white straw hat. Look at that guy out front.
He's basically a Wild West version of the Terminator.
And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
Exactly. And after getting chased for days and seemingly cornered, it looks like the game's up. But not before we get another of Butch's great ideas.
No, we'll jump.
And a bit more comedy.
I can't swim!
And Road, after playing their get out of jail free card and risking death or paralysis by this ludicrous jump, they finally escape LaForce's Terminator posse. And Butch has the idea of buggering off to Bolivia so they can't get caught, well out of range. So Butch, Sundance and Sundance's lady friend Etta Place head down to South America via New York City. And this is where we get another musical interlude. Now, this was another bit that I remember thinking it was crap, first time I watched it. But I appreciate it a lot more now. There's a lot of storytelling, because it shows how the Old West is becoming a thing of the past. You know, your stereotypical Wild West gunfighters are becoming old relics. You know, times are a-changing, as they say. Now, when they get to Bolivia, it's a bit of a shithole, and Sundance, he ain't happy. But after they've overcome the unforeseen obstacle of not being able to speak the lingo,
They're against the wall already!
they go on a bank robbing spree, And this is where we get our third musical interlude. And the montage is loads of fun as they're robbing folk blind, but not killing anybody, I hasten to add. And the music, well, it ain't like any sort of music I've heard in the Western before, but it's great. Yeah, it really makes the sequence loads of fun, I reckon. We're having a great time with these armed robbers terrorising the locals. So, yeah, weird music choices by Burt Bacharach, but it somehow works. And obviously the Academy thought so as well.
The winner is Burt Bacharach for Butch Cassidy.
Yeah, he got the Oscar for Best Score and Best Song, with Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Now, unfortunately, they suspect that LaForce has followed him down to Bolivia, but realising that it's out of his jurisdiction, so he can't arrest him or extradite him, they surmise that he's just going to bump him off and claim the reward. So Butch has another wizard idea.
We'll drive him crazy. We'll outlast the bastard. We'll go straight.
So they become poachers turned gamekeepers as payroll guards, but they only last one day on the job before the boss gets murdered. And they try and do the right thing to get the money back.
Tell them we're hired to take it back. It's our job. Tell them the money isn't ours.
So they've gone through the whole film as bank robbing outlaws without killing anybody. And then as soon as they go straight, it's a bloodbath. So too much work-related stress means it's back to a life of crime. But inevitably, the authorities track him down. And a thrilling gunfight ensues. And we get to see Sundance Kid really doing his stuff here. And Butch, he's crap with a gun, so he has to use his cunning to try and get him out of the situation. But there's just too many police out there, and they sustain some damage. And I found myself thinking, oh, how are they going to get out of this one? But then to make matters worse, if the odds weren't bad enough, the old Bolivian army turns up. So you then start thinking, oh, they ain't getting out of this one, are they? Which I found pretty sad, because they're such likeable fellas and you're rooting for them throughout, you know, even though technically they are armed robbers. And that's testimony to the wonderful performances from Newman and Redford. You got a couple of charismatic leading men like that, easy to get the audience on side. In fact, the dynamic reminded me very much of Peachy and Danny from Man Who Would Be King. Yeah, a couple of lovable rogues who were thick as thieves. Well, things go tits up for them and all. Now, I don't know whether they know that they ain't getting out of this or not, but they attempt to run for it. But we get a freeze frame, and we don't see what happens, but we hear what happens. And we get a fade into sepia and the melancholic piano music kicks in again. Now, as I say, I hadn't seen this for years. I watched it the other day with my lad Dino, and he pointed out that the ending, very much like the ending of Blake 7, where Avon is surrounded by Federation stormtroopers. And you're thinking, oh, how's he going to get out of this one? And you just hear a load of gunshots off screen. So, obviously dead. Or is it? You know, because it's off screen, you don't know, do you? You don't know for definite. And it's the same with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. You don't know for definite that they've been killed. Alright, yeah, you do. Now, as sad as it was, you've got to say it's probably one of the most memorable movie endings of all time. But, were that what happened in reality to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? Well, it's time for the long-awaited return of a much-requested feature, Ickle Ray's Reality Check. Ickle Ray.
Out there, Raymondo.
Yeah, out. Now, did Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid get gunned down by the Bolivian army, or did they somehow manage to escape?
Well, Raymondo, there were indeed reports of two American bandits believed to be Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, who committed a payroll robbery on November the 3rd, 1908, and were then tracked down to a small boarding house 3 days later, which were subsequently surrounded by police and soldiers from the Bolivian army. Now, there were a gunfight that lasted several hours, but around 2 a.m, the screams of a man were heard from inside the house, along with 2 successive shots that were fired. Now, the Bolivian authorities found 2 bodies who were identified as the 2 bandits who robbed the payroll, but they didn't have any way of formally identifying them as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So there's a theory that there were just 2 other random American bandits. Anyway, the bodies were buried in San Vicente Cemetery. Now, in 1991, the graves were dug up in order to try and positively identify the bodies, but they couldn't find any remains with DNA that matched the living relatives of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And indeed, family members suggested that Butch Cassidy returned to visit them in the 1920s, and there were loads of other claimed sightings and all.
He was still full of fun and could tell a good joke.
So, the evidence is inconclusive, but there is a chance that they might not have been shot dead by the Bolivian army.
So they might not be dead? Oh, that's great, that. I mean, I know they're outlaws, but they were just such lovable characters. I like to think that they escaped certain death at the hands of the Bolivian army, and they're still alive.
Well, we aren't wishing to be a party pooper, Raymondo. It were over 100 years ago, so whatever their fate, they're definitely very dead.
I know. It's nice to think that they made it out of there, isn't it? They were such lovable characters. Hey, while you're here, Ray, another question for you. If you've got gigantic testicles, does it hurt more if you get booted in the jaffers?
Well, theoretically you should have the same amount of pain receptors, regardless of the size of the testes, but a larger than average testicle would provide a bigger target, consequently making it easier to get it flush on the nads.
Yeah, makes sense. Okeydoo, on to Ray's ratings. Well, I ain't seen this for years. I can remember bits of it, but I couldn't remember a lot of it. I knew it were good, so I were hoping for at least a 3-star film. But I tell you what, I thought it were fantastic. What a cracking movie. Newman and Redford, just brilliant. Some very clever directing, and some weird music that it shouldn't work, but I found myself really enjoying it. And one of the most memorable endings in movie history. So I'm rating Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid a 5-star, 3-star film. Okeydoo, you lot ready? Ready?
No.
Righto, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I thought that went alright. Sorry, I forgot some words. Well, hope you enjoyed my review of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Rayvers. And if you did, poke the old like button for me. Give it a good old poke. Or maybe draw really quick, like the Sundance Kid, and shoot a massive hole in your keyboard. Yeah, and remember to share our reviews with your mates and subscribe if you ain't already a subscriber. Very much appreciated. As are all them fantastic comments you keep popping on. Thank you so much for them. Apologies if I don't get around to responding to them all. And why not come and join me and the Ratrons and Nickel Ratrons over on Patreon, where you can submit your suggestions for reviews, and we get up to other fun stuff on there and all, including Ray Ruttle's Race Night, where the full Ratrons have their own personalised horse and jockey in this year's tournament. Yes, the launch night for that is this coming Sunday, 7 PM on my sister channel. I'll pop a link in the description below to both that and my Patreon. Now the Ratrons and Ickle Ratrons will be suggesting their ideas for Christmas themed movies for our next review, because Crimbo's fast approaching, ain't it? So copyright box permitting, I will be back with that review for you very soon. So I will see you next time. Okeydoo!